and Economic Growth, Finance, and Policy will be in order. Senator Housley.
Mike's not on.
The Committee on Jobs and Economic Growth, Finance, and Policy will be in order. Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Test 1, 2, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a quick announcement before the committee started. I wanted to welcome a lot of folks here who have driven a long way from the Minnesota Film Board and in support of the Minnesota Film Board, and they were hoping to get 5 minutes of committee time today, but we don't have 5 minutes of committee time, so I just wanted to thank them for coming on down, and we'll see you later on during this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Housley. Okay, a quorum is present. Members, we have one item on the agenda today, which is Senate File 580. But before I turn it over to Senator Miller, I'd just like to walk through how I'd like to proceed today. We have 30 minutes allotted for the proponents of the bill. We have 30 minutes allotted for the opponents of the bill. And then we'll have approximately 20 minutes for debate and questions for the testifier. Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused as to why we're doing only 30 minutes for and 30 minutes against. We have a bill that clearly has a lot of folks here that want to speak for and against it, and I think an open debate that takes the time necessary to be so we can vet this issue is important, and so I'm a little perplexed by that.
I appreciate it, Senator Isaacson. We have, I think, a total of approximately about 45 people that want to testify today, but we've got it set up for 30 minutes, and then 20 minutes of questions. We do want to be respectful of people's times. We've got a committee after this, so there will be opportunities after this committee to address as well. Senator Isaacson.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if this maybe is worth having two committees through to get it done. Is this supposed to be fast-tracked? Is it in a hurry for some reason, or?
No, it's not, Senator Isaacson, but this is the agenda for today.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So again, we have 30 minutes allotted for the proponents of the bill, 30 minutes allotted for the opponents of the bill, and then we have approximately 20 minutes for debate and questions for the testifiers. Members, I'd ask that we hold questions until approximately 2 o'clock. We want to be respectful of the schedules, and we do have a committee meeting in this room following this one. We intend on wrapping up and voting on the bill approximately 2:25. We are hoping to hear from as many people as possible, so I'll be calling testifiers up 3 at a time, 2 at a time, it looks like. We've got chairs for two at a time. We have 14 proponents, so please keep your remarks between 1 and 2 minutes, no more than 2 minutes. And we have 28, I believe, opponents, so please keep your remarks. So we want to hear from as many people as possible. So if you could keep your remarks to about a minute, that'd be great. In addition, if those that spoke before you have said some similar messaging, if you could bring a new perspective, that'd be appreciated. Testifiers, I'd also ask you to stick around once we get to the question and answer portion, that we can call you up. There will be other opportunities to testify at other steps along the way. And if you don't have a chance to speak today and testify, we'll do all we can to make that happen from our end. With that, the first item on the agenda is Senate File 580. Senator Miller.
Thank you, Chair Anderson and committee members. Today I'm here to present Senate File 580, the Uniform State Labor Standards Act. I'd like to begin by going through the bill. The language in the bill is pretty straightforward. Obviously, we know that there are folks that have passion on both sides of this issue, and so I'm going to go through the language of the bill relatively quickly so we can hear from as many people as we can on this language. Section 1 is simply the title, Uniform State Labor Standards Act. Section 2, Subdivision 1, defines employer and local government. Subdivision 2A states that a local government must not adopt a local ordinance, resolution, or policy requiring an employer to pay a wage higher than the state minimum wage. Subdivision 2B states that a local government must not adopt a local ordinance, resolution, or policy requiring an employer to provide either paid or unpaid leave time. Subdivision 2C states that a local government must not adopt a local resolution or policy regulating the hours of scheduling of work time that an employer provide an employee. This does not preempt a local ordinance, resolution, or policy limiting the hours of a business that a business may operate. Subdivision 2D states that a local government must not adopt a local ordinance, resolution, or policy requiring an employer to provide an employee a particular benefit, term of employment, or working condition. Subdivision 3 states that this bill does not regulate wages, benefits, terms of employment, working conditions, or attendance policy, 1, provided to an employee of a local government, 2, agreed to in a contract for goods or services provided to a local government, or 3, agreed to in contract for goods or services funded in whole or in part by financial assistance from a local government. Finally, the final portion of the bill is the effective date. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we turn it over and listen to public testimony so we can get through as many folks who want to speak on this issue as we can.
Great. Thank you, Senator Miller. Would Mr. Winton and Mr. McElroy come forward? Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Senators, thank you. My name is Cam Winton. I'm with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. We support the Uniform State Labor Standards Act, and we ask for your yes vote on it. Minnesota's employers are proud to do our part in our state to provide good jobs with good benefits, competitive wages, to provide great places to work. And to continue fulfilling that responsibility, what Minnesota's employers need is one set of standards to play by. In contrast, this patchwork of city-by-city ordinances presents severe challenges, logistical challenges, administrative challenges, legal challenges, HR challenges. And to have our state be turned into a patchwork of more than 850 city sets of regulations, more than 87 sets of county regulations, threatens to take companies limited time and energy and money away from the things that help employees, like competing, developing new goods and services to offer in the marketplace, growing and hiring. It threatens to take resources away from those good things and instead put them towards legal compliance, building new HR computers to track the number of hours that employees spend in particular locations. This bill would be consistent with a number of laws that the state has passed over the decades, putting particular areas of policy as uniform across the state. I mention that in part because the principle of local control is tremendously important. We respect local control. And local control is something that is very appropriate in many areas of policy, whether it is school curriculum, zoning code, property taxes, et cetera. But in other areas of policy, the state has decided that it's in the best interest of Minnesota to have one uniform standard across the state. And this bill would put particular areas in that column of uniform treatment across the state. In closing, right now in Minnesota, we have a 3.9% unemployment rate compared to something in the high 4s nationwide. 3.9 is the unemployment rate in in Minnesota. It's even lower in the Twin Cities. Wages are growing right now faster than they've grown in 6 or 8 years. Those are good things for employees. Those are good things for Minnesota. Let's continue that trend. Let's continue to allow employers to compete with each other to attract and retain employees by offering great competitive wages and benefits. And let's support the Uniform State Labor Standards Act.
Thank you, Mr. Winton. Mr. McElroy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Dan McElroy. I'm Executive Vice President of the Minnesota Restaurant Association and the Minnesota Lodging Association. Restaurants and hotels are concerned about the prospect of having multiple minimum wages and sets of labor mandates. The vast majority of my members are very small businesses. Many have no HR or accounting or personnel staff at all. The owner does those things on the kitchen table at 2 in the morning or on Sunday after church. Our largest members have 2 or 3 people in a business office to accommodate, in some cases, multiple locations in multiple jurisdictions. This is a significant burden on small business. We work really hard to keep our small business members up to speed on one set of labor regulations, and that's the state set, overlain in some cases by federal regulations. And to add 2, 5, or 100 others is really, no matter how much we want to do for our employees, having those multiple rule books is untenable. I also want to raise the issue that many of my members are very portable in where they provide their services. We have about 200 food trucks in Minnesota that will work in a different community morning, noon, and night, and 7 days a week for their 5 or 6 month season. I have dozens of members who are caterers and deliver and serve meals for weddings and birthday parties and bar mitzvahs and a wide variety of occasions in many communities across the state. We have members who provide food service in a variety of ways where having multiple rule books would be a challenge. We also compete for capital, including with the 28 states that have uniform labor standards, particularly on the hotel side, where building and remodeling hotels is a very expensive endeavor. The risk of having 50 rule books would play into the decision as to where capital was invested. So we're concerned about this. We think there are other ways to achieve great wages and benefits for our members. The tight competitive market that Mr. Winton mentioned is one of those. So we would ask that we continue to be one state and one rule.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. Mr. Chesick and Mr. Forsberg, would you please come forward? Mr. Chesick, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Tony Chesick. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association, the MLBA. The MLBA is a statewide association of family-owned small businesses, liquor stores, bars, and restaurants. These bars and restaurants are at their best public houses to gather, celebrate, relax, and create community. I'm here to represent the many members of the MLBA and their support of Senate File 580. And to tell you how without this bill, there'll be significant negative impacts on small businesses throughout the state. In the 159 years the state has existed, small business owners have been able to rely on wage and labor practices to be set at the state level. This has provided certainty and uniformity that has been proven to be quite reliable. We haven't had to deal with different labor rules, city by city or township by township. This recent break from tradition is the first step in the creation of patchwork of labor rules and potentially different levels of wages depending upon where these businesses are located. This also will increase competitive disadvantages within the hospitality marketplace. Next, some might ask, what impact does this have on a bar, restaurant, or liquor store in my district? They think that their city would never do something other cities have done. I will tell you that if the cost of goods go up because the distributor is based in a city that chooses to impose its own unique wage and labor standards, that cost will be passed along to the bar, restaurant, or liquor store, and in turn passed on to the consumer. We live in an integrated state where products are supplied to all parts of the state to small business owners. I'd like to conclude where I began. The members of the MLBA are often some of the most identifiable small businesses in your cities. We value our communities. We value our employees. We just think that setting wage and labor standards city by city does not make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chesick. Thank you. Mr. Forsberg.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for listening. So I am one of those people that, oh, sorry, it's Eric Forsberg. I am one of those business owners that he speaks of that would find not having a uniform standard to be incredibly burdensome. I currently employ 162 hourly employees. That number has jumped in the last year by 120 employees. I can tell you that I spend an inordinate amount of time currently managing the labor laws that are in existence. That's not to say that I don't want to manage those. We want to set a labor standard in Minnesota. We want to take care of our employees. That's something you need to understand. I'm not here to debate the details of what's going to go into this book. I'm debating which book I need to listen to. We don't need 3 books. We already comply with the federal book. We comply with a state book. To set a standard at a city level, which creates more confusion, creates more of a burden onto my daily tasks that we already have in running a restaurant. I'm here to serve and create a customer experience at the store level. To become an HR professional, which is what this is actually turning into at this point, is, I can tell you, we're a little more organized than some other organizations that I deal with. And I will tell you, there will be violations of this law, and it will be by accident. And these are good people that are providing good jobs, and you're going to put them in a position to fail. You're setting them up for failure. Let's do something that is a standardized rule, that's a statewide rule, that doesn't tear away the fabric of the state by creating city fiefdoms that are creating their own rules to make a statement. We are the state of Minnesota. We are a unified state. We are unified counties. We are unified cities. Let's stand as one state. Let's speak as one state. And let's act as one state.
Thank you, Mr. Forsberg. Mr. Hickey and Ms. Poole. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, Mr. Hickey.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Stand-in Chairman. It's Mike Hickey with the National Federation of Independent Business. We're the largest representative businesses in the state. As many as you know, we represent about 11,000 small businesses across the state. And we're here today in support of Senator Miller's bill. I want to thank him for bringing this bill forward. You don't have to look too far to find a reason to pass this bill, and that's across the river at the city of Minneapolis. The city's been very active on several new mandates on employers, and it kind of leads one to question, if the state doesn't act, where does this end up? We have 854 cities in this state, but to date, the city did enact a new paid sick leave mandate on all but the smallest employers. Seriously considered a very unworkable scheduling mandate that fortunately was shelved, and now is seriously considering an unaffordable $15 minimum wage that many small businesses aren't going to be able to cope with. And I think when you consider the fact that there's going to be a hotly contested mayoral race, there's a very good chance Minneapolis will act on a dramatic minimum wage that's going to be harmful to small business, especially to small restaurants. Those who have more at minimum wage are going to feel the biggest pain of it. It's a 58% increase from $9.50 to $15 an hour. We just increased the wage fairly dramatically from $7.25 to $9.50 an hour recently, as you know, in tiers, and it's finally settled in at $9.50. How many small businesses can absorb a 58% increase in labor costs? And when you look at how this is going to shake out in Minneapolis, if it occurs, those who have more at minimum wage or near it are really going to feel the pain. Some aren't going to be able to cope with it at all. Some are going to have significant job loss. And I think in the end, we're going to see less job opportunities for young people and second and third and fourth incomes in households if Minneapolis acts. Also, there's another real significant reason to enact this bill, and you're going to hear from a lot of the testifiers on it today, but how do multi-location employers deal with this? If you're in 5 or 7 locations, and especially if you're a smaller multi-location employer, and this becomes quite the trend in this state for all different cities to step up and act different types of benefits and minimum wage laws, and it's going to be very difficult for those small employers to deal with several different sets of mandates and wage mandates and other benefit mandates. And so I think it's time. It couldn't be more pertinent for you to act on this bill this year, and appreciate the chance to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Ms. Poole, please state your name for the record.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon. I'm Jamie Poole, President of the Minnesota Grocers Association, and I'm here to speak in support of the Senate file. The MGA is a state trade association representing the retail food industry. We are one of the oldest trade associations in the state and are celebrating our 120th anniversary of representing consumers, careers, and our community. We have over 300 members with nearly 1,200 locations statewide. Our members include grocers, convenience stores, wholesalers, manufactured, and allied partners. Our member companies employ both union and non-union Minnesotans, and we provide about 1 out of every 20 jobs in this great state. We have a unique culture of hundreds of grocers and convenience stores, many of who are independent, multi-generational, and locally owned. They are the cornerstone of their community. We are also the home to an abundant array of food manufacturers, wholesalers, and distributors. We create jobs, support local charities, and provide a safe and responsible shopping experience. I want to just tell you a little bit about our industry. The average sale per customer transaction is around $31. Our average customer stops in 1.6 times a week. The average family of 4 has a weekly shopping basket size of around $145. And the retail food industry typically operates on a net profit margin of around 1 to 1.5%. Additionally, the movement of food from farm to fork is a highly complex, interconnected framework of commerce. As an industry, we strive to meet the needs of our 21st century consumer. Consistency and predictability of marketplace is necessary. With the new trends of cities across the state enacting their own workplace mandates, creating a patchwork of compliance issues and complications that will inevitably trickle throughout the entire food chain. As an industry, we currently adhere to both federal and state labor laws. This third layer of labor regulations will put a significant hindrance on the success of our industry. As a community employer, we value our employees and know how important they are to our day-to-day success. We are a customer service industry. Wellness, attitude, and relationships are key to our viability. The grocery store is the heart of your community. We strongly urge you to advance and support uniform state labor standards. Supporting this legislation will help create a level playing field and places the discussion of labor policies in Minnesota at the state level. Thank you, and I will be happy to stand for questions later.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. Mr. Rush and Mr. Carr, please. Mr. Rush, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Steve Rush. I'm the Director of Government Relations for Holiday Companies. We are a family-owned Bloomington-based convenience store company, and next year we will celebrate our 90th year of doing business. We have over 300 corporate and franchise locations in Minnesota, located in approximately 100 cities and towns across the state. Holiday employs more than 4,200 people in Minnesota. I'm also an employment attorney for Holiday, and there are a number of concerns that my company and I have with the local employer mandates, many of which have already been expressed. Compliance with some of these ordinances passed or contemplated is extremely difficult. For paid sick and safe leave, much concern has been expressed about counting the time of an employee that is not based working in a city, but occasionally spends time there. Holiday has petroleum drivers, bakery delivery drivers, IT professionals, me, and other colleagues who spend intermittent amount of time in the various cities, and it would be very difficult to accurately keep track of that time. The enforcement process could be very expensive for businesses. One of the paid sick and safe leave ordinances provides for a private right of action and an award of attorney's fees. It is inevitable that innocent mistakes will be made, and yet businesses will have to pay significant attorney's fees for those mistakes. Minnesota cities are also being very active in regulating other aspects of our business by banning styrofoam cups, plastic bags, and legal tobacco products. Along with these expensive employment mandates, the cumulative effect of these regulations make it more difficult to operate a successful business. I really do not take lightly a step to restrict cities and ways to improve local communities. However, there is a significant potential that our cities will inadvertently create a bad business environment that will only ultimately harm the residents they seek to protect. Therefore, we support Senate File 580. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Mr. Carr, please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Brian Carr. I'm the Government Relations Director and Legal Counsel at the Minnesota Retailers Association. It is my honor to represent great retailers across this state, from small Main Street businesses to medium-sized retailers with multiple locations to national retailers. Retailers across Minnesota have expressed concern over the patchwork network of local ordinances that have passed recently and are being considered. Small, Main Street, and medium-sized retailers in particular say they will be greatly impacted by the new significant increase in their administrative duty to comply with local labor ordinances. In addition to already complying with federal and state laws, Minnesota retailers will be required to devote even more resources into complying with local law, which we have already seen lacks consistency among cities. The extrapolation of these inconsistent ordinances could lead to 854 different ordinances, across 87 counties, or potentially 87 different county ordinances, all of which Minnesota retailers who already operate in an internationally competitive environment would have to comply with. Even if it is only a fraction of the 854 ordinances across the state, it would be extremely difficult to comply with those. Retailers across Minnesota appreciate consistent, predictable, and uniform state labor standards as they allow retailers to do what they do best: invest in their communities, invest in their employees, and sell great products to consumers at competitive prices, as opposed to losing growth opportunities to another layer of compliance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Mr. Hackbarth and Mr. Rockler, please come forward. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Tom Hackbarth. I represent the Bowling Proprietors Association of Minnesota. We represent over 130 members across the state of Minnesota, including many members in the metropolitan area and including Minneapolis. I would like to reiterate the fact that this is not just a bill about Minneapolis and St. Paul and what they're doing, but Duluth, I understand, is also considering this same type of proposal, and this is something that's going to catch fire, and a number of different communities are going to try to do the same kind of thing, and there's, like was said earlier, there's going to be a number of different laws across the whole state that we're going to have to deal with. So the bowling proprietors of the state of Minnesota are 100% behind Senator Miller's bill, Senate File 580, and hopefully you can support it and vote for it today. Thank you very much. I'll stick around later for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hackbarth. Mr. Rockler.
Ken Rockler from the Tavern League, and I'm going to take a little bit different tack since all the other comments I would make have already been made. I was a little disturbed at the House meeting last week. There was really a very antagonistic attitude towards the businesses. I won't get into all of the things that were said, but as someone who went against some of my fellow testifiers a couple of years ago, I actually testified in favor of the minimum wage increase. When I was in business, way back in '76, we had health insurance at our restaurants. I think we must have been part of the 1%. I don't think it was a commonplace then. So I guess I'd ask you to consider that these businesses really don't mean badly for their employees. I'd never met the people from either the chamber or the partnership until a few months ago when this bill was first being met. But when I hear companies like Target or the grocers or SuperValu attacked, I ask myself, is this the Target that for years has always given 5% of profit to the community, whether they were under the name of Dayton or Target? Or is this the Cub Foods that, or SuperValu, the parent company, that hasn't paid a dividend in years because they're in a tough economic market, but they pay very good wages with benefits? This patchwork will hurt everybody that's in small business. I think it'll hurt everybody that's in large business also, but they're a little bit better able to take care of themselves. There is such a myriad of laws and things we deal with right now. I stopped by the bookstore last Friday in preparation for this meeting because I hadn't gotten one for a couple of years. Those of us that are in the liquor trade, either on or off sale, the code is 118 pages long. I mean, you can make mistakes, and I have made mistakes without even knowing I was breaking the law years ago when I was in business. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I too will be around later if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rockler. Mr. Work and Mr. Housleden. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Tim Workey, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Associated General Contractors of Minnesota. We're the state's oldest and largest construction trade association, and we represent over 400 commercial building, highway specialty contractors. About 80% of our firms are union-affiliated firms, and we employ somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60,000 construction workers in the state. The AGC is supportive of the Uniform State Labor Standards Act because we believe a patchwork of local ordinances that define employment benefits and conditions across the state is inherently unworkable, especially for the construction industry. And I'll be brief on 2 or 3 points that have not been mentioned which affect construction uniquely, particularly the workforce. The construction workforce is a transient workforce. The craft workers regularly move from project to project and employer to employer and city to city. It is not uncommon for a construction worker to have worked on multiple projects for multiple employers in just one construction season. Therefore, tracking the variable hours worked and differing benefit terms and conditions across political jurisdictions will be burdensome, costly, and unworkable for construction employers. Secondly, as I mentioned, construction in Minnesota is largely collectively bargained and provides collectively bargained benefits. In the union construction model, wage and benefit packages that are collectively bargained between the employers and trade workers, the workers average somewhere in 2014 around the area of $58,000 per year. Collectively bargained construction contracts already have an accommodation for sick and safe leave and personal time off. It's called a vacation savings fund. For those of you that are unfamiliar with that term, a vacation savings fund is a mechanism that allows a worker to bank a portion of their hourly pay that can then be accessed to compensate the employee for PTO or for sick time. Lastly, small businesses, and you've heard the concerns about that. Over 80% of our firms employ fewer than 20 persons, and we believe that the burdens that the regulation would that the local ordinances would impose would be difficult to track by those small employers. We urge you to support this important piece of legislation. We believe the state must intervene in the matter and pass this legislation to prevent the implementation of burdensome and unnecessary compliance standards on industries like construction that already meet the desired outcomes of such ordinances. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Werke. Mr. Hausladen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am John Hausladen, president of the Minnesota Trucking Association. We are a statewide organization representing 675 motor carriers and their allied vendors. I'm here today to testify in support of Senate File 580, a bill that fosters uniform labor standards and helps trucking companies by ensuring a consistent marketplace, a level playing field across the state, and a stable work environment for our workforce. Trucking companies will be daily impacted, and that's the thing I want to stress in my testimony, daily impacted if they are required to adhere to a patchwork of local labor and employment ordinances. As you've already heard, truck drivers are constantly on the move, loading, unloading, and driving from customer to customer. So just as an example, you could have a driver start his day in Blaine, deliver in Mounds View, Roseville, St. Anthony, Minneapolis, St. Paul, North St. Paul, before returning to Blaine at the end of the same day. Now imagine what it would be like for the trucking company to track that driver's hours and activities and then ensure he or she receives the right benefits according to each city's ordinance. It would truly be a bookkeeping and compliance nightmare. We believe a better solution would be to have a consistent, uniform labor standards between jurisdictions at the state level, which is why we support Senate File 580. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hausladen. Ms. Larson and Mr. Hansen, and we do have approximately 3 minutes left. Members of the audience, please.
Mr. Chair and members
Ms. Larson.
of the committee, my name is Adam Hansen. I'm with the Associated Builders and Contractors of Minnesota. ABC represents over 300 construction companies who employ over 22,000 high-quality, multi-skilled craft professionals. Our contractor members throughout the state pay their employees based on merit, experience, and job performance. They also offer competitive benefit packages that meets the need of an ever-changing and in-demand workforce. ABC supports Senate File 580. We support the bill because we are seeing cities claiming the authority to tell contractors working on private construction jobs like hotels, restaurants, office buildings, and homes to either implement a one-size-fits-all benefit package or pay prevailing wage rates for those construction employees. And those prevailing wage rates don't provide employee-paid sick time. Prevailing wage laws are a relic of the early 1900s. They are never designed to apply to private construction jobs, and they act as an artificial fence to limit competition. This is exactly what will happen without Senate File 580. Passing this bill would ensure that contractors and their employees who build Minnesota can bid and work competitively while still providing flexible, innovative, and competitive wage and benefit packages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Mr. Hanson. Ms. Larson, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, my name is Jill Larson. I'm with the Minnesota Business Partnership. The partnership's members include about 120 of Minnesota's largest employers, most of which are headquartered here in Minnesota. We support this bill. Our members already offer a robust set of benefits, including things like paid leave, PTO, and we do this because we think it's necessary to attract and retain talent. But even for large employers, this trend of growing workplace mandates is making it very difficult for those companies with sophisticated HR systems to keep up with all the different variations in these regulations, especially because we have employees that are based in many different jurisdictions on a given day, on a given week, in a given year. So it's become a real administrative problem. So we appreciate your support for the bill, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. We will now be moving into the opponents section of the committee. So we now have 30 minutes for the opponents. Ms. Glidden and Mr. Hall, please. Welcome to the committee. Ms. Glidden, state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Elizabeth Glidden, and I'm the Vice President of the Minneapolis City Council. As a city council member, I'm expected to listen and respond to the needs of my community, and this is what council members and mayors do on a daily basis, working to keep our community safe, fix our streets, provide housing that's affordable, and on and on. We understand that the stated purpose for a bill like Senate File 580 is to avoid a patchwork of workplace policies. And to that end, the city of Minneapolis has, for many years, supported statewide action on these issues, including an increase in the state minimum wage, a state safe and sick time law, paid family and medical leave, and other policies that promote health, safety, and equity in the workplace. However, in the absence of action at the state level or the federal level, and in response to the hundreds, if not thousands, of residents demanding action from the city of Minneapolis, we adopted a sick leave ordinance in 2016. This was developed after a very lengthy process engaging employers, workers, business and labor groups, and many others. We found through our process that many employers in the city already have good sick leave policies, but we also found that approximately 41% of Minneapolis workers do not have access to paid sick time. Many of these are in the service industry, compounding that public health impacts. I'm a mom and a parent of a second grader in Minneapolis public schools. And on one of the days we were having a committee meeting that was actually on the development of the sick leave policy, I got a call and I recognized the number as my child's school. And sure enough, it was the nurse saying that my daughter was sick, she was vomiting, and needed to be picked up as soon as possible. I was able to leave my workplace and pick up my daughter, something many salaried employees are able to do easily, but this is one very common issue that poses a terrible choice for thousands of parents in Minneapolis who are hourly workers and predominantly people of color. Do I risk my job security and my income, which puts food on my table and a roof over my family's head, to leave work and care for a child who needs me? There's a reason that the League of Minnesota Cities, Metro Cities, and the two largest cities in the state of Minnesota are unified in opposition to this bill. We are concerned about interference in local decision-making and interference in our ability to represent our community's needs. In conclusion, we respectfully oppose Senate File 580. We think it's important to take care of our businesses, but that needs to be balanced with taking care of workers too. This file undermines a local community's ability to respond to needed changes expressed by constituents. Please don't take away our right to elected representation at the local level.
Thank you, Councilmember Glidden. Just a reminder to our testifiers to keep it brief. We want to, that was 3.5 minutes, and thank you. But we've got to move through 28 different individuals, so thank you. Go ahead and state your name for the members of the audience, please. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the record, my name is Max Hall, Legislative Representative at AFSCME Council 5. AFSCME Council 5 stands strongly opposed to Senate File 580. Senate File 580, as you know, is a bill that expressly prohibits local units of government from enacting minimum wage policies above the state's minimum wage floor, which is evidenced from lines 1.15 through 1.18 of the bill, and prohibits local units of government from passing paid family and medical leave and sick and safe time policies, which greatly benefit workers, and that's evidenced from lines 1.19 through 1.20 of the bill. The state's minimum wage is clearly a floor. It is not a ceiling. Local units of government know their localities the best and are best positioned to know whether or not their community is able to accommodate changes in the minimum wage or the institution of paid family and medical leave and sick and safe time policies. Working class and middle class Minnesotans deserve the chance to fight in the halls of power for a higher minimum wage and paid family and medical leave on the local level, just as they are capable of doing so on the state and federal level. No law ought to prohibit the local democratic process and encourages people to participate in policymaking. AFSCME Council 5 is strongly dedicated to ensuring that all Minnesotans have access to a good quality of life and dignity in both the workplace and in their homes. And to accomplish this, all Minnesotans have the right to earn a good living and be provided the benefits that they have earned and fought for in cities like Minneapolis and St. Paul. With more resources for working class and middle class Minnesotans, the impact on the economy has been proven to be significant, as they are more poised to spend more resources on much needed products and services from their local businesses to support their families. AFSCME Council 5 not only has this position for the benefit of our own members, but we stand in solidarity with all citizens of the state of Minnesota fighting for dignity and respect in the workplace and in their communities. And so AFSCME Council 5 stands strongly opposed to Senate File 580, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for allowing us the opportunity to testify. And when the question section comes up, we'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Ms. Blisle and Mr. Swenson-Clapp, please. Mr. Foster, please. Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Swenson-Clatt. I'm a resident of Minneapolis, a small business owner. For the past 11 years, I've been running a small bakery. I've been involved in my city as a small business owner with a voice. I've been able to participate deeply. I feel sad that I took my time away from work. I left during lunch. I have someone I'm paying to be there, and you're going to give me 1 minute. I'm going to ask Mr. Miller to read my 10-minute investment in your time, because I believe I have a story that's important, and I can't be heard at this level. I can be heard at my city. And I believe it's actually a little immoral to be the oppressor here for us, because we don't have the time and the paid money. Someone else is getting paid to sit here and talk to you. This is a chamber bill. It's a chamber bill. It's not a small business bill. I already pay earned sick and safe time to my employees. I choose to do so. It's the right thing to do. It costs me about 1% of my revenue. Wow. What a great investment, though. My employers are happy. My community is happy. I'm happy. And I believe the story will tell small businesses can survive on this patchwork. It's a beautiful patchwork, beautiful state, diverse, lovely. Let's not turn this into a uniform state standard.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson-Clapp. Members of the audience. Members of the audience, please. We're going to give one warning. I want to be respectful of everybody in the attendance, but we will not have disruption or protest during the hearing. So I'd ask you just this once, please do not have any disruption, or we will call on the Sergeant-at-Arms and the State Patrol to remove those individuals, okay? Mr. Foster, Ms. Kearns, please.
Mr. Chairman, while they're walking up, can I get a page to make a copy of this letter and make sure all the members and myself get a copy, please?
Okay, Mr. Mickelson. Mr. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Todd Mickelson. I am a small business owner. I own a small business in Orono, Minnesota. And as a small business owner, I can't afford to hire a professional lobbyist to speak up for me on policy issues. When we elect our city council members, we have the most intimate relationship with them of all elected officials, and that's where our voice begins. To have our voice then be stifled by having those city elected officials' policies be rendered invalid is a direct affront to us. Small business owners often work with city officials to adjust laws and ordinances to become the best fit for our local areas. It's these adjustments that often end up shaping state and national policies to be better as well. The work we as small business owners do along with our city officials should not be disqualified. It should be embraced and learned from. And to take away our local control of things is nothing other than an intrusion. Large corporations often get benefits that us small business owners have no access to. We're left out of the equation because we have no one to speak for us at the state capitol or in D.C. Only the large corporations who can afford to hire lobbyists are accommodated. So I hope you'll take the opportunity to hear my voice as a small business owner, asking you to please not take away my voice at the city level. City councils are listening to us constantly. We have much easier access to them, and they are our neighbors. To stifle them is to stifle us. So I'm asking to please not stifle the voice of small business owners like me. Allow us to retain our local control of our own fates. Large corporate lobbyists do not speak for me, I do. And I hope you'll recognize me and other small business owners too and oppose File 580. And thank you, by the way, for letting me speak, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelson. Senator Isaacson.
Mr. Chair, I would understand you're trying to get this done in a timely manner, but I think that to extremely limit their time and their ability to get the word out and then be surprised and want to threaten them with removal when they show their angst over this situation that you yourself created is a bit disingenuous. And so I hope that you'll have extreme latitude before you make any decisions about trying to remove people from the audience. Thank you.
Senator Isaacson, appreciate it, but we've already had a couple situations already, and again, I want to be respectful of the audience, but I want to make sure that we can proceed and with the time and make sure. So I'm asking that there's no disruptions or they will be removed.
Mr. Chair, if you remove them, I will walk out with them.
Mr. Chair, I just want to also mention that it is custom and usage of the Senate that there's no applause. So I think that's what Chair Anderson was just trying to get to is if we want to get through as many folks as we can, let's just allow people to come up, speak their opinion on the bill, and then we'll continue to proceed with the testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Brown and Mr. Rath. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record. Proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Rathie. I own a landscape company called Field Outdoor Spaces in Northeast Minneapolis. And I'd like to just take a quick journey through the neighborhood I work in. My company is based in a restored paint factory filled with small businesses. Since I moved into this space 5 years ago, all the industrial buildings in the vicinity have been converted and now house small businesses of every possible type. The types of businesses are bewildering to me. I look at their names and I'm not totally sure what they do. But all of a sudden, there's a computer development company, and it goes from 5 employees to 50. There's marketing companies, coffee roasters, service companies. And where do all these people come from that start the businesses? Where do the people come from that work in the businesses? You might be surprised. Many are from the cities, some from the suburbs, and some from places like Rochester and Bemidji and Wadena. But also many, many people are coming to Minneapolis and St. Paul from places like San Francisco and Seattle, Indianapolis, Washington, D.C., because of the environment that's being created here. The cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul are experiencing a business renaissance. The state should not be stepping in and dictating what is best for Minneapolis and St. Paul. The senators and representatives in Minnesota are part-time servants who consider over 3,000 bills during a session and have failed repeatedly to agree on major state business like transportation and bonding. This is not who should be dictating what is best for Minneapolis and St. Paul. We have energetic, full-time council people. We have energetic businesses committed to the well-being of our community. We have citizens who vote in high numbers and stay up to date on important issues. There is a great energy right now in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and a growing partnership between businesses and local officials. Please don't stamp that out. I ask everyone to vote against local interference. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Blaha and Mr. Marver. Ms. Blaha, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Julie Blaha, and I am Secretary-Treasurer of the Minnesota AFL-CIO. We are the federation of more than 1,000 local unions, representing more than 300,000 working Minnesotans. I'm here today to speak in opposition to Senate File 580. The committee has a clear choice today, a choice that will impact local communities, local families, and all working Minnesotans. A vote to advance this bill is a vote to deny paid sick days to more than 150,000 working Minnesotans. It's a vote that tells the thousands of citizens who lobbied their local elected officials that their voice doesn't matter. It tells citizens that local democracy doesn't matter. And it's a vote that tells local officials, small business owners, and working people across the state that they aren't allowed to improve labor standards to improve their communities. We should defend local communities and local control. Sadly, this bill does the exact opposite. Senate File 580 is bad for communities, it's bad for small businesses, and it's bad for working families. On behalf of 300,000 working Minnesotans, I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blaha. Mr. Marver, please state your name for the record. Proceed.
My name is Tom Marver, and I'm a board member of JCA, and I'm representing JCA here today. This preemption bill is an attack on workers who have recently made progress at the local level. This bill negates all of the work, time, and effort our members invested on serving on the Minneapolis and St. Paul Earn Sick and Safe Time Task Force. JCA strongly opposes passage of Senate File 580. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marver. Ms. Nauman and Ms. Schmedeman, would you please come forward? Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record. Proceed with your testimony. Ms. Nauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Patricia Nauman. I'm the Executive Director of Metro Cities, which is an association representing 90 cities in the metropolitan area before the legislature and executive branch. I'm here today to respectfully oppose Senate File 580. Metro Cities policies generally support local control and decision-making authority and believe that local officials are in the best position to respond to a community's specific needs and should be allowed to make appropriate local decisions. Metro Cities policies do overall oppose statutory or other policy restrictions that would impede the ability of local officials to act in the best interests of their community. In supporting local decision-making authority, Metro Cities policies do recognize that what works for one community may not work for another, and thus flexibility that allows local officials to respond to the needs and circumstances of their communities must be maintained. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you, Ms. Nauman. Ms. Schmedeman.
Hello, my name is Deborah Schmedeman, and I am Professor Emerita at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, where I taught employment law courses for 30 years. As a lawyer, I represented some of this state's largest employers, and I've also represented people with very low incomes. My views are, of course, my own. I oppose this bill for two reasons. The balance of equities tilts sharply against this bill. The point made in favor of the bill is that it would cut off a patchwork of local laws that employers would have to comply with. I think this concern is very manageable. With sound human resource practices and working with local governments, I note, for example, that the Minneapolis ordinance had a variety of initiatives to enable employers to deal with the rules that would have been enacted. On the other side of the scale are the concerns that local governments are trying to address with these ordinances. Employment law is not just about the workplace. We are a culture of workers, so when we regulate the workplace, we impact communities. You already heard about what the Minneapolis ordinance was about. It was about addressing poverty. It was about making it easier for families to exist. It was about making various places of eating, about health care, safer. So I think the far-ranging substantive community issues that these local ordinances are trying to address far outweigh the manageable administrative costs of the so-called patchwork of local laws. But the second point, and this is the law professor here, says this bill represents a misuse of preemption. Why? Preemption should occur only when the legislature has fully considered a preempted topic and enacted a comprehensive statute. This bill is flawed. It is not attached to a statute on a particular topic at all. It refers to topics on which there is not a Minnesota statute. It refers to a set of catch-all terms that would cover almost anything. And it is retroactive so as to ban local ordinances enacted over as long as a year ago. And the latter provision is particularly troublesome, indeed to me offensive, standing as a reprimand to the communities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's a textbook case of why preemption should be exercised judiciously. Participation in local democracy invigorates civil society, and local governments are supposed to be laboratories coming up with great ideas for this legislature to consider. That's why I stand against it. Thank you for considering my ideas.
Thank you, Ms. Schmedeman. Arlene Datu and Stefan Pomrink. Welcome to the committee.
Hello.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Arlene Datu. I am a leader with Isaiah and the mother of 3 adult children who are all college educated and living in St. Paul. I was jubilant when the St. Paul City Council voted unanimously on a sick and safe time ordinance for our city. I and many of my colleagues in Isaiah had worked long and hard with our city council and our community to make sure we could get earned sick and safe time for the 72,000 workers who currently do without. That includes my sons, my daughter, and my daughter-in-law. But now it appears that corporate special interests are trying to undo all the good we have done for our city and the people in our community with the introduction of this Senate File 580 that would nullify paid sick time. My children and my grandchild will suffer if this bill is allowed to move forward. 2 of them hold down jobs here in the city where they receive no benefits, including no paid sick time. My daughter works at a restaurant here in the city and has had to go to work sick because she needs the money to pay her rent. Utilities and groceries, she can't afford to miss any hours. My daughter-in-law works in St. Paul and gave birth to a baby boy just last year. She had to take her son, my grandson, to the emergency room for care one evening when he was running a high temperature and continuously vomiting, only because she couldn't take time off to take him to a doctor. That is not right. Good, hard-working people should be able to stay home when they are sick or have a medical issue and not have to worry about if they will have the money to pay their bills. As a person of faith, I believe we all need to be treated with dignity and respect as we are made in God's image and likeness. There's no sense of dignity or respect toward us as human beings when a person has to drag himself to work or send a child to school sick because they have no other recourse. That is an untenable choice. I urge this committee to vote against this bill. Vote instead for families and local communities and local public officials who can make the best decisions about the welfare of our communities and not the large corporate interests whose focus is solely on profits and the bottom line. Vote for the good of all our families and our children by not letting this bill go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Datu. Mr. Pomerink.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator Miller. I'm Dr. Stefan Pomerenke. Grace and peace to you. I'm a family physician living in the east side of St. Paul. I'm represented by Senator Fong He. I provide direct patient care at a federally qualified health center near my house. Many are uninsured, many are underinsured. On a nearly daily basis, I see people directly affected by not having earned sick time. My parents immigrated to the United States. My mother from a family sporting goods business. My stepfather was a farmer. I am married with 2 children. I'm an active, young, white male. At my clinic, I do not see that many that look like me. Young, white men often are not sick. Who I do see are women of all ages, children, and people of color that per their socioeconomic status are more likely to have chronic illnesses, health inequity. In 2015, the Minnesota Department of Health published their white paper on paid leave and health. Their statistics are compelling. However, actual life is one-on-one, each individual, each patient with their own needs. My personal Christian faith leads me to see the face of Christ in each individual that I meet. I represented Isaiah on the Earn Safe and Sick Time Task Force for the city of St. Paul. Like the Senate's Purple Caucus that Senator Miller founded and co-chair, disparate voices, 26 in all, came together to create a city ordinance that was right for us, right for St. Paul. I oppose Senate Bill 580. St. Paul's socioeconomic realities are different from your Senate district. Thank you for honoring St. Paul's aim to look out for its neighbors.
Thank you, Dr. Pomerenke. Pastor Stevenson and Mr. Weiss. And we've got 8 minutes.
Mr. Chair, Leota Goodney has traveled a ways to be here, and I'd like you to give her my spot. I can go next or whenever you want after that. Leota Goodney.
Pastor, could you repeat who is that?
She can introduce herself. She's on the list. She's just later in the list, and you're running out of time.
Okay.
And
my name is Leota Goodney. I'm a CPA from Northfield. I'm in Mr. Draham's district, and thank you for allowing me to move up in the list. I'm an accountant and own a small accounting firm in Northfield, so I have experience with small businesses and their accounting. For the one-person, for the one-owner small businesses that I have, this across different districts is a non-issue because they're only going to be dealing with one issue. I strongly believe that someone who works 40 hours a week, if they're not doing such a bad job that you want to fire them, should be able to pay for rent, food, travel to their work, and save something for retirement and pay for their health care. In other words, they should have a living wage. Now, across Minnesota, there is a wide variety of living wage levels. Mankato, where Mr. Draham is close to, and Warroad up on the north end of Minnesota have lower costs of living than St. Paul and Northfield and Minneapolis. So it is entirely appropriate that the state should set a minimum wage that is across the board that will supply a sufficient living wage for the lowest places in the state, and then allow other places that have a higher cost of living to have a higher one. This makes it much easier for you to pass a decent minimum wage law. So I ask you to reject this Senate Bill 580 and allow local districts to set the minimum wage and other employee benefits that are appropriate to their economies.
Thank you, Ms. Goodney. Pastor Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I speak in opposition to House Senate File 580, which is written by the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce and is part of a nationwide ALEC strategy to disempower workers. It's nothing less, Mr. Chair, than a corporate power grab. You've heard testimony today about the problems with patchwork laws, that it's better to have uniform statewide labor laws. But there's nothing virtuous about uniform laws if they're uniformly bad. And this push by the Minnesota Chamber is completely disingenuous. Mr. McElroy testified today that businesses don't want multiple levels of minimum wage, but that's the exact opposite argument that they make when there's an effort to raise the minimum wage across the state. Then they will come to your committee, Mr. Chairman, and they will say, oh no, Greater Minnesota can't possibly have the same minimum wage as what is minimum wage rate is in the metro. We need different rates, a patchwork of rates across Minnesota. This law is about disempowering communities who want to do better and who do not believe in corporate Minnesota's race to the bottom of worker benefits. The vast majority of Minnesota cities, hundreds of cities, 833 out of 853 cities, are opposed to this legislation. Even at today's meeting, even though there's only a half an hour for each side, you'll notice that those here in the middle of the day, unpaid, not paid lobbyists, here to testify against this bill outnumber those testifying for it 2.5 to 1. But we are subject to this false equivalence of 30 minutes each. The Minnesota Chamber of Commerce doesn't represent the people of Minnesota. You do. If you vote for this bill, you should be prepared to go to the elected officials in the cities in your district, and you should explain to them why you know better than they do about what their community needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. David Weiss and Ms. Lopez. We've got just about 4 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I am eager to speak, but I'm concerned that we've not heard from a single person of color, and so I would like to ask that Roshita, who is here representing NOC, have the opportunity to speak before me.
Okay. Can you state your name for the record and proceed?
Hello, my name is Roshita Credit, and I'm here because I've been fighting for the last 2.5 years with an organization called NOC for paid sick and safe time and also help with $15 minimum wage. I used to work at the Target field and also McDonald's, where we were the Target field, I was actually my time was being stolen. I stood in line for hours and wasn't being paid for it under minimum wage. And McDonald's, my daughter got sick and I couldn't go into work and I didn't have that PTO that I needed. So I ended up losing my job and also losing my place to stay. So currently I am homeless and have nowhere to go with my children. I'm in a hotel as of right now. And a $15 minimum wage and paid sick and safe time would help lots of families in North Minneapolis like me. There's plenty of people I could have had up in here, standing right here next to me, saying how they need this PTO and this $15 minimum wage. With living in North Minneapolis and not having $15 minimum wage, not being able to get that PTO, caused me to be homeless with my 5 children. These are just 2 of my children that I had to bring in today to come speak to you guys and let you guys know how much this really means to the citizens in North Minneapolis, not just colored citizens, but also white people, orange people, blue people, green people. We all need a $15 minimum wage and paid sick and safe time so we can have the means to take care of our family, raise our children, for them to live better lives. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cred. Mr. Weiss.
Please don't pass that bill.
My name,
please don't pass it.
My name is David Weiss. I'm Lutheran, and I'm here with Isaiah. Local initiatives matter. I get earned sick time today because my employer recently added that part-time benefit in response to the local initiatives in 2016. So this is personal. But the bigger issue for me is justice. The racial gaps in Minnesota on household income, home ownership, and poverty are among the worst in the nation. Since the majority of Minnesotans of color live in the Twin Cities, the 2016 initiatives put these Minnesotans first, precisely where disparities are worst. But this bill seeks to preempt that social justice. The real uniformity this bill maintains is keeping wages and benefits as uniformly low as possible for as long as possible, in a state where our racial disparities are not simply an embarrassing statistic, but an obscene injustice to the people of color who call Minnesota home. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, this bill is about grinding the face of the poor. That is not my Minnesota. I hope it's not yours either. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. We're going to allow for two more here. On the list, we have Ms. Lopez and Ms. Sorensen. If you'd like to come forward. Ms.
Lopez isn't here.
Okay. And then Ms. Sandy. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Michelle DeZille, and I live in Lake Elmo, and I'm in Senator Housley's district, and I'm here to vote no. I hope you will vote no for this bill. I am an African-American woman, and I am very upset at how you are trying to get rid of paid sick time. When my son was 3 years old, he had an asthma attack. Fortunately, as a teacher of color, I had paid sick time, and I was able to take care of him. Now you want to take that away. Your actions say to me that you care more about corporate interests, and you'll kick people of color, women, business owners, and local officials to the curb. If you care about Minnesotans, you'll vote no to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sandy, would you state your name for
Yes.
the record?
My name is Deanna Sandy, and I'm one of the owners of St. Agnes Baking Company, which is located right here in St. Paul. We support earned sick and safe time because we value our employees, and we are proud of the beautiful and healthy, I'm saying healthy, bread that they make. When an employee is sick, they cannot work in the food industry. It's a Food and Drug Administration law. That is why we give our employees time off when they are sick, because we want to have a good, safe, and healthy product for fellow Minnesotans to eat. I believe that all employees across the state should have earned sick and safe time under a policy that is at least as strong as that passed in the Twin Cities this past year. Until that is made a state law, it is critical not to preempt Minneapolis and St. Paul ordinances and not to take earned sick and safe time away from more than 150,000 Minnesotans who have finally won these benefits. All employees, all participants in our democracy, and all families deserve to be treated with dignity. That is why I oppose preemption and urge you to do the same.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy. Senator Isaacson. Okay, we're wrapped up on the opponent's testimony, and now we're moving into dialogue. So, Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say that by and large, I'm very disappointed about this in a couple of really important ways. One, anybody paying attention to the national scene sees that this is yet another proxy fight about a bill that's clearly in line with ALEC and the Chamber and their national narrative on how we look at workers' rights. And I'm really unfortunate to see that we're going to play that out here again. You know, I find oftentimes, and especially in the last, well, since I've came to the legislature, that there's a lot of political arguments pretending to be policy arguments and then carrying out the battles within committee and on the floor during votes. And I see this as a classic example of that, largely because what I find is that in my time in the other body and here as well, I'm seeing these bills that come across that have kind of their own extreme agenda involved with them, and then they're ran up the flagpole, passed out of the House or the Senate by the opposing majority, or the leading majority right now, and given to the governor when there's no chance the governor is going to sign it. And so that makes me wonder, what's the point, and are we really having a policy discussion today? Are we having a political discussion? It seems to me like we're having a political discussion, not a policy discussion. Now, I don't doubt for a second that my esteemed members on the other side of the aisle want to see good business practices. They want to see things that are going to be successful so their businesses thrive, so Minnesota thrives. That isn't a question to me. But when the bill seems to so eerily line up with the national narrative that I've seen going on in several states where this battle is going, it makes me question how valid of the discussion we're actually trying to have here is. But for the sake of discussion, let's pretend it's a policy discussion just for a moment. I see that this bill in many ways is an extreme overreach, and I think it flies in the face of a rich history of local control. I find it a bit disingenuous that the Chamber lauds local control but then writes a bill or is involved in writing a bill that clearly restricts it. I have a real problem with the way in which this bill seeks to tell a local community what they should do. I am a big proponent of local control because I believe that the closer the voter gets to the elected official, the more accountable they are, and I've seen it in my own city council races and my own city government. And I think that's really important, and that is where the rubber meets the road in terms of our ability to have activism and be engaged. So I have a question for Senator Miller, if that's okay.
Senator Eggleston.
Thank you. I've been listening closely and I've been paying attention to what I'm hearing from the folks that are really in favor of your bill. And about 99% of what I'm hearing is a lot of the concern about can they manage the complexity of a truck driver that moves from city to city as they deliver their route every day, and that can businesses who have to have people operate in one city and then another city and another city able to manage and dice that up. And what seems to me is that what would have been an easy fix if you were really concerned about fixing this would have been to say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to say that local labor standards are going to be limited to the district that they're in, the city that they're in. So if Minneapolis wants to pass whatever they want, that's fine because that's local control, but they can't affect something outside themselves. To me, that seems like if you were looking in this effort to find a middle ground between two very different opposing points of view, that would have been a middle ground that says to me, hey, let's work together and find something that works for both sides. Instead, what I see is a bill, ordinance that passed with the engagement of dozens and dozens of stakeholders throughout all the committees, or all the, communities that were involved. And then I see a bill that just says, you know what, cities, you just don't get to have any of that power or authority. And so the problem I have with that is that if Minneapolis, or in my case, Shoreview, wants to pass a law that affects Shoreview residents and affects Shoreview businesses, that's completely their purview. And we have a checks and balance system for that, and that's the local elections. So I don't understand why we didn't offer a bill that does something like that, that clearly shows something that can work with the governor, versus a bill that we both know has no chance, unless you can correct me now, of being passed by the governor or signed. So help me understand why we would go to the level we did versus where we're at.
Senator Miller.
Senator Isaacson, Mr. Chair, thank you. So what's your specific question?
My question is that if we're talking about the biggest concern that I'm hearing from folks that are in favor, that's fair, I did get a little wordy there, I apologize. If we're talking about the 99% of what I heard from folks was that we don't think it's fair, or it's an undue burden on businesses through regulation to require them to track and manage all of the possible benefits they would have to, or city laws they'd have to do for every moment that their employees are traveling across the metro, across the state. Why didn't we just write a bill that says the city ordinances only apply to businesses within their city ordinances that are based there? Why didn't we do something that would have kept it local? That way you keep local control and solve 99% of the problems they had with this bill.
Mr. Chair, Senator Isaacson, The whole point of this bill is to have fair and uniform standards related to labor standards, fair and consistent throughout the state. So the example that you brought up would not address fair and consistent throughout the state.
Yeah, please.
Senator Isaacson.
So either what you're saying now is, in my mind, slightly different than the meat of the testimony I heard from your advocates, right? Or we have a misunderstanding. Because what I heard was a concern about tracking labor standards across the state, correct? In terms of city to city. And I heard a dedication from numerous ones of your advocates that we really want to keep the spirit of local control involved, but this just goes a little too far. And so in my mind, I'm again asking, why wouldn't we leave local control there and just say you can't apply a labor standard if you don't want it? Because you know what? It sounds dangerously close to me. My idea sounds like we're relying on the free market, because if an employer doesn't want to live in Minneapolis to follow the rules, they can move to Shakopee or someplace else. I mean, there's an election that the employer could try to get involved in to change the city officials. That's how government is supposed to work. I don't understand why we're circumventing that process to say that we're going to mandate this down, especially when we're talking about getting rid of local control. That just seems like it's we're definitely crossing some lines there I don't think are healthy for our state.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Isaacson, I would argue that your approach would have more mandates. The idea of this bill is to have fair and uniform labor standards that are consistent throughout the state. So if a local jurisdiction passes a local ordinance, that is a mandate. This is preventing mandates.
Senator Isaacson.
I think that if every city, Senator Miller, you're from Winona, right?
Winona, yes, sir.
I think if every city had the demographic and makeup of Winona, then you would be correct that then we could be able to do that. But the reality is it's apples to oranges. When you look at cities of the first class, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the smaller cities in greater Minnesota. And to say that I think that Winona or Moorhead, Minnesota, or Dalton isn't as equipped to manage how they should treat their employees and their businesses, and that we down here in St. Paul, and this is beginning to eerily sound like the exact opposite of the rhetoric I listened to all fall, it seems to me like we're really crossing some lines that are not connecting the dots. Because what we're saying is this: guess what? You're a city in Shoreview, and Shoreview is going to pass an ordinance. We're going to work with our Shoreview businesses to do that. Shoreview can best manage what goes on in Shoreview, not what we do here in St. Paul. Same for the Range and Brainerd and Redwood Falls. And so I hope that we'll take that into consideration, because I'm confident, as I can do basic math as a communications specialist, that you have the votes here to pass this on. But the reality is you don't have the narrative, and that this is not going to fly well when it goes to the governor's mansion and he vetoes it. And I think, again, I ask, if this is really a policy discussion, why didn't we offer policy that would allow for both parties to be engaged in the process? This bill does not do that. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to everyone who testified today. Before I provide any of my comments, I'd like to ask 4 questions, and that would require 4 individuals to come up and speak briefly. One, I would like the professor from Hamlin, William Mitchell, to come up, if she will. And I'm sorry that I don't know her name. And then,
Schmedeman? Yep.
And then while she's coming up, if I could also get Councilmember Glidden to come to the podium as well. And then I would have a question for Senator Miller. So maybe I would ask the questions and then each one could answer the appropriate question, because I think it all fits together. And then also on task, or if I could get Ann Finn from the League of Minnesota Cities to be nearby as well, because I have a question as it relates to the cities, in addition to the question that I'm going to ask Councilmember Glidden. So, Professor, you discussed when the use of preemption is appropriate. It seems to me that is whenever it's attached to specific policy that should be looked at, which is missing here. Can you speak a little more about that, if you will? And then for Senator, excuse me, I said Senator Glidden. I mean, you know, I'm sorry about that.
You've been elevated.
Councilmember Glidden, if you could talk about the manageable patchwork and from the perspective of what steps were taken by the city of Minneapolis and how does it apply to their neighbors around the city of Minneapolis. When we think in terms of patchwork, I've heard a lot of people talk about patchwork and what thought went into the city's decision around its ordinance, because the elephant in the room is the city of Minneapolis, right? And so if we could talk a little about that, and if I can provide any clarity to that question, I will. And Senator Miller, can you tell me, does Senate File 580 apply to local anti-discrimination laws as well? So we'll start there, and then I will get to the fourth question for Ms. Fine.
Thank you, Senator Champion. Ms. Schmedman, would you restate your
Certainly.
name for the record, please?
Again, I'm Deborah Schmedeman, Professor Emerita at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. And parenthetically, I edited the Minnesota State Bar Association Labor and Employment newsletter for a decade. So preemption normally attaches when a higher level of government creates a statute on a particular topic, has spent a lot of time thinking about that topic, decides that it has properly balanced all the issues, considered what the law should be on a topic, and then says, got it, done it, did a good job, we got the field covered. So it attaches when a particular topic is discussed, right? What this statute does is talks about Uniform State Labor Standards Act, identifies some topics, but note what it isn't doing at the same time. It isn't saying, as we enact this statute, we are enacting a good, balanced statute on these topics ourselves. The topics in this statute stand in various relationships in Minnesota law. Some you've addressed, some you haven't, obviously, right? Let's call out the topic, sick leave as an example. And then there's this one provision that is incredibly broad, so nobody knows what it is. You're really saying to state and local governments, you can't touch this very broad area, particular benefit term of employment or working condition. I can tell you within Minnesota law, that's a breathtakingly broad list. And I don't know whether you really want to say that that entire area should be preempted. At the least, you're buying an enormous amount of litigation over that topic. So to me, that's very unwise. So it's a very irregular use of preemption. I think it doesn't have good policy behind it. And it also is striking to me that this is coming up after, as I said, you've got local communities that took on a topic, spent an enormous amount of time to create, doing exactly what local, lesser, so to speak, the lower level of government does, which is create the effort, put in the effort, create the law to show the next level up. Let's give it a whack. Let's see how this works.
Thank you, Mr. Schmedman. Councilmember Glidden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Champion. As I understood it, you wanted just a small bit on what was our process and then how we thought this might apply a little bit. I referenced a little bit of the process in my initial testimony. We had a very involved process. I would call it process enhanced. I don't know that we've ever done anything quite like this in Minneapolis around this type of process. We formed a committee that we had an open appointments process for that had business representatives, worker representatives, labor and business association groups, a variety of perspectives. We hosted small meetings all around the city, many of which were designed to get particular stakeholder perspectives from different communities, from different types of businesses and service industries, and from worker groups. And then we also had some large public comment venues. So we used all of that in addition to doing a large amount of research to understand what other cities around the country have done, because there are dozens of cities around the country that have adopted some form of sick leave laws very similar to what we have done in the city of Minneapolis.
And if I might, just as
Senator Champion.
Just for clarity, so is it also fair to say, because I think your earlier testimony, Councilmember Glidden, was that if the state had put forth something that the city could wrestle with, then you all would not have done that work, but because it was glaringly missing and is still missing in this policy, that was the reason why the city of Minneapolis and others decided that they needed to do something that was reminiscent or at least considerate of the residents that they serve. Am I putting words in your mouth, or was that a part of what you
I mean,
said?
I guess what I would say is that clearly this is something where there is a full fundamental gap at the state level in terms of setting forth some type of minimum regulations. We don't have that at the state. We had hundreds and hundreds of people come to us and say, this is a big gap, we need it. And as you heard from some of the testifiers, some of those who came to us were business owners as well who wanted to engage in the conversation and bring up the standards. And this is a public health measure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember. Senator Miller, and then,
My fourth question.
Yep, and then just want to watch the clock here. Senator Champion has an additional question, and then Senator Simonson, and then we'll wrap up. Senator Miller.
So, Senator Champion, my answer to your question would be there are no changes to current law. I'm looking through the language of the bill right now, and there are no changes to current law.
Senator Champion.
All right, and then Ann Fine? And so while Ms. Fine is approaching the podium, we did here receive a letter from the League of Minnesota Cities that I don't think was available back there. But Ms. Fine, if you could speak to whether cities support Senate File 580, and if not, why? And whether cities are in the best place by which to do what's in the best interest of their residents, or is that something that the city feels comfortable leaving to the work of folks around this table?
Ms. Fine, please restate your name for the record.
Mr. Chair and Senator Champion, my name is Ann Finn, and I represent the League of Minnesota Cities. The League is a statewide association representing 833 of Minnesota's 853 cities. We oppose Senate File 580 because it's in conflict with the League's long-held core value that local elected decision makers are in the best position to determine what health, safety, and welfare regulations best serve their constituents.
And finally,
Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that I would say that one of the common things that I've heard from the various folks around the table is the importance of local control. That it's important that their local municipalities like cities are in the rightful position to do and to pass ordinances or to consider issues that are pertinent to their residents. Not only that, but we talk about access. Local residents being able to have access to their electeds, and in the event their electeds are not doing what they need for them to do, there's this thing that's called an election, and they can go to their local polls and decide if their interest is being represented appropriately. And so as I begin to think about this, I would hope that we all would think about it as we get ready to cast a vote. And with that being said, Mr. Chair, I'm asking that once we vote that we do a roll call.
Okay. Roll call has been requested. Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I too would just echo many of the comments made by my colleagues and appreciate the fact that so many folks came out here today to testify on both sides of the issue. A couple of comments, Mr. Chair, but first a question. Did we leave anybody that was on the list that didn't get a chance to testify today?
Senator Simonson, yes, there are probably about 6 individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that, and I'll include that in my comments here, and I'll wrap up as quick as I can. But members, you know, this is a frustrating thing for me because I know one of the things that I talk a lot to my own city councilors in my own city about is, you know, how to best create a good working relationship. And one of the things that they often tell me, and I often agree with, is, you know, the worst possible thing that an elected state official can do is interfere in what they perceive to be their responsibilities. And I understand, Mr. Chair, Senator Miller, that the bill that you would bring forward would essentially take those responsibilities out of their hands. And I think that's what the frustrating part is. But, you know, Senator Isaacson touched on this a little bit too about, you know, kind of this blurred line between what's political and what's good policy. And I think on our side of the aisle, we don't see that there's a lot of thought behind this or a lot of really good policy behind this. And I know that, you know, Minneapolis and St. Paul have taken specific actions through the work of their city councilors and mayors and have put a lot of time and energy and effort into doing that. And I'm not, it's not forgotten on me the fact that those folks are as close to the people as you possibly can get, and they are elected officials, and they are accountable to their constituents. So we have got to be of the assumption here in state government that those folks are being accountable and they are doing the will of their communities, so to speak. And it's not, I mean, it's clearly obvious that this particular bill, when I just look at the co-authors, there's not a single senator that represents St. Paul or Minneapolis as a co-author. Furthermore, I will tell you that as a senator representing the city of Duluth, my community last year put together a Earned Sick and Safe Time Ordinance Task Force, much like these other two cities have done, and are working through this process. And that task force consists of folks that are on both sides of the issue. Big business, small business, labor, community activists, city councilors, and they're doing good work and they're doing a lot of it. And I am 100% confident that what comes out of there as a recommendation to the Duluth City Council will be a compromise. Because that's how good policy works. It's compromise, it's process, it's bringing all sides of the issue together, and I think that's what's missing here. And let's not forget that one of the reasons why local governments act is because of the absence of action at a higher level. And you see that here, right? I mean, the state essentially has not been able to get some of these things passed, and local communities are taking it upon themselves to do what's best in the interest of their constituents. And I don't think we should stand in the way of that. Mr. Chair, and if there's one piece that's even the most frustrating, and I would say the most egregious, is when people travel to the state capitol to have their voice heard. And we heard from a number of them, and we also have some that didn't get the opportunity to have their voice heard. And I believe I heard you say in the beginning of the meeting that this bill is not on a fast track. There's, as I read the bill, there's nothing in here that says that we have to pass this today and send it on to the next committee. There's certainly no rush. And I think in the interest of letting Minnesotans have their say in state government, that we should find the time to be able to do that. And I think with that, Mr. Chair, I would move to table Senate File 580.
Not debatable. No. That's a non-debatable motion, but I guess we can roll call. Yeah, you should request a roll call.
So Senator Simonson moves to table Senate File 580.
And a roll call, Mr. Chair.
And a roll call has been requested. The committee assistant will take the roll.
Chair Anderson.
No.
Senator Champion.
Yay.
Senator Draheim. Senator Goggin.
No.
Senator Housley.
No.
Senator Isaacson.
Yes.
Senator Little. Senator Little. Senator Miller.
No.
Senator Simonson.
Yes.
Senator Utke.
No.
Senator Draheim? Okay. Change your vote from a yes to a no? Okay.
The noes have it.
So being being 6 noes and 3 yeas, the motion does not pass.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Miller, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I know there is another committee that needs to come into the room. I agree with Senator Simonson. If the committee would allow, and folks can keep their testimony very brief and to the point with if there are members of the public that are here that were on our list that have something different to say than what the rest of the testifiers said, I would ask that our committee give 5 more minutes to hear that testimony.
Is Mr. Griffin and Mr. Benny in the audience still? If you could come up. And then I'd ask Mr. Moen and Ms. Dearmond to be ready. Thank you.
Jeffrey Benny.
Mr. Griffin, state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Duncan Griffin, and I'm not originally from Minnesota. I moved here a little over 4 years ago from my hometown in Texas to go to school at Macalester College. I was excited to come to Minnesota, a state with a reputation for being a good place to live and work. I graduated last May, and I decided to stay in St. Paul for another year to get my bearings. And I'm fortunate that my circumstances give me the freedom to move if necessary, because right now I am at a point in my life where I'm deciding what to do next, where to pursue a career, where to put down roots. I'm considering Minnesota. In most respects, it's a good place to live. But if this bill becomes law, local governments will, among other things, lose the ability to set a minimum wage higher than the states. Please believe me when I say this makes me want to leave. And let me be clear, I am not the only recent graduate in this position. Many of us want to live in a state that respects local government's decisions regarding labor, and we want to live in a city that has the power to make those decisions. And it's not just a matter of philosophical preference. A city that can set a competitive minimum wage is simply more attractive to workers. I worry that some of the senators planning to vote for this bill haven't considered the effect it will have on Minnesota's reputation as a good place to work. If Senate File 580 becomes law, it will damage that reputation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Mr. Benny.
My name is Jeffrey Benny. I live in St. Louis Park, and for 49 years, my family and I owned and operated a small manufacturing company. Over the years, we were located in Minneapolis, Columbia Heights, Cambridge, and Isanti. In each location, we hired employees at wage rates higher than the minimum wage, and we allowed employees time off to tend to their health and family issues. I was present for the hearing for the companion bill, House File 600. The opponents told of choosing between working for next month's rent or taking a day without pay to tend to a sick child. In this, the greatest country, it is morally wrong to force our citizens to have to make those choices when it is in our hands to do otherwise. Enacting Senate File 580, you would be telling the cities, counties in Minnesota that you know better than they do how to govern themselves. The governments in those cities were elected to represent their citizens. They should be allowed to do that. The state should not preempt the will of the people when they elected their local governments to do what's right for them. In closing, I'd like to go back to the hearing for the companion bill, House File 600. In voting for House File 600, the majority showed their true colors. They showed that they are beholden to the moneyed corporate interests that oppose the bill. They chose to ignore the real challenges that the opponents presented. For the reasons I have noted and many others, I urge you to take the moral action, the right action, and vote against Senate File 580. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Mr. Moen and Ms. Dearmond, if you could come forward and just ask you to keep it to about a minute. Mr. Moen, please state your name for the record. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Scott Moen. I'm here representing Jewish Community Action and Isaiah. I've lived in St. Paul and have practiced as a small business lawyer for over 30 years. I am opposed to the bill because it undermines both economic justice and our democratic process. As a lawyer, I have interacted with many lawyers and have watched many lawyers put their legal skills to work. From my experience, lawyers, and by extension those who make laws, either use the law as a tool for justice or as a weapon. I regard this bill as a weapon because of the way it serves to crush local initiatives to improve labor conditions for people at the bottom of the economic ladder. Income and wealth disparity have never been greater, yet those with enough or more than enough always need more. These days, people are getting clear in a hurry about who is working for them and who is working against them. If minimum wage had kept pace with productivity and inflation, I understand we'd be somewhere around $20 an hour for our minimum wage. We're far from that. In response to local expressions of democracy at work, legislators had two choices. One was to pass top-down legislation to crush local laws promoting economic justice for workers. Alternatively, legislators could have proposed legislation to extend the local minimum wage and paid sick leave laws statewide. I hear and do not dismiss the arguments in favor of the bill, but in the end, the arguments boil down to one thing. Local labor laws will be inconvenient for business. For workers, the issue is not inconvenience, but rather survival. Last year, we saw a good, kind of on display, big business on display. CEO John Stump, a Minnesotan, claimed to take responsibility, then got corporate tough love in the form of a $20 million severance package. I want to wrap up with three questions to members of the committee. How would you justify this bill to someone living on a minimum wage who can't afford to be sick? Is it fair to eliminate a very small advance in economic security for people at the bottom of the economic ladder while a CEO gets $20 million after engaging in massive corporate fraud? What does it say about our values if our first impulse is to crush democracy when it tries to provide small gains in economic security for real people? As stated earlier, people are rapidly becoming clear about who is working for them and who is working against them. Personally, I'm fed up with legislators who pretend to represent real flesh and blood people while they do their bidding of big business and millionaires. You on this, as senators, have a great deal of power. I implore you to use your power as lawmakers for economic justice rather than as a weapon. You have an opportunity to show that you support the interests of real people by ending your support for this bill. Thank you very much.
Mr. Moen, thank you. Due to time, Ms. Dearmond, please state your name for the record, and we're going to wrap up after this.
My name is Chelsea DeArmond. I am a small business owner in St. Paul's, Dayton's Bluff neighborhood, and I am here to urge you to oppose SF 580. As a small business owner, I know that patchwork requirements can be inconvenient. But as a member of a community and as a person of faith, these inconveniences do not concern me nearly as much as the struggles my neighbors face as they try to make ends meet and take care of their families. I strongly support the democratic process that resulted in St. Paul's paid sick time ordinance. This process included voices from working families, healthcare professionals, city council members, faith leaders, and business owners like me. Since business already has a seat at the table, this preemption bill feels like a power grab that undermines a process that is already serving communities well. The corporate interest in this bill is self-evident. However, the state's interest is less clear to me, especially since working families and taxpayers pick up the cost when corporations fail to pay their employees living wages, or in the language of this bill, fail to provide employees adequate benefits, terms of employment, or working conditions. I am also concerned to know that an equity impact statement was not provided for the House version of this bill, and presumably not for the Senate version either. Lastly, I question how helpful this bill really is, even for businesses. It may actually disadvantage small business owners like myself, who have cultivated good relationships with local communities and city council members, but who do not have the time or resources to hire lobbyists to represent our interests at a state level. The goal of business is to minimize expenses and maximize profits. We tend to focus on our own bottom lines rather than the bigger picture. We may forget that your workers are my customers and vice versa. While the economics of this bill are open for debate, the morality of it is not. Please oppose SF 580.
Thank you, Ms. Dearmond. Senator Miller.
Mr. Chair, I move that Senate File 580 be recommended to pass and be re-referred to the Local Government Committee.
Mr. Chair, just a quick.
Senator Champion.
Two things. One, Senator Little could not be here today, and I just wanted to make that clear that he wanted to be here today, and he wished that he could be here to speak from a mayor's perspective and why he would oppose this bill. Secondly, there was three other testifiers who could not make it. Frank Brown, who would be in opposition to this bill, Julie Cairns, and Eric Foster. And last but certainly not least, I want to acknowledge receipt of Mr. Daniel Swanson's letter. That letter was circulated. I want to make sure that it's acknowledged that we did receive that.
And Mr. Chair, to that point, there is another stop in the process. That we'll have another full committee hearing on Senate File 580 if the committee chooses to pass it out of the Jobs Committee today.
Thank you. Senator Miller moves that Senate File 580 be recommended to pass and be referred to the Committee on Local Government. Roll call has been requested. The committee assistant will take the roll.
Mr. Chair, can I have a moment, please?
Senator Goggin.
Thank you. I'd like to just talk about, I'm a full union dues paying member of one of the members of the AFL-CIO, and my concern with this city control is where does the control stop from the cities? Every time we go into contract negotiations, I hear from my negotiating teams that, you know, there's not much we can do because that's what the law is, and that's what the city's done, or that's what the county's done, or the state's done, or the federal's done. And every time we turn around, we're giving up more and more ground in our union negotiations and our contracts. My concern with this whole bill is where is the employer-employee relation going to come from? Why are we going to allow all of these entities to get into the relationship with our employers and employees? I personally want to have that opportunity to negotiate my contract, but I'm not going to be able to be given that opportunity if we keep doing this. And I've got a lot of members in my union that are counting on our union dues and our union pay, and we're not going to have that opportunity if we continue down this path. So I'm really concerned about that as the government keeps inserting itself into that employer-employee relationship. Where does it end? And at some point, businesses are probably going to say enough is enough. I have no idea, but I have no desire at my age to start my own business because I don't have that desire to do that. I enjoy working for who I work for. I enjoy being a union member, and I just want to make sure that we're all looking at this big picture-wise because that is something that we are definitely going down a very tenuous slope right now, and we could all be really hurting from this in the future as this session has become the session of unintended consequences. And so we really need to think about what we're doing on both sides of this issue. Thank you.
The committee assistant will take the roll.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to put on the record that I have had the opportunity, or we've had the opportunity to talk to all the other labor groups from AFL-CIO to SEIU and others, and they stand in opposition of Senate File 580.
The committee assistant will take the roll.
Mr. Chair, I understand, Senator, that they do stand in opposition to it. As a member of it, I'm very concerned at what's going to happen to us as members of those unions. And it is very, very troubling to me to see what's happening. My dues keep going up, my benefits keep going down, and my wages aren't keeping pace with that, and my fellow members aren't. And I'm very, very concerned with that. And I think we need to step back and think about that before we go forward.
Members, thank you. The committee assistant will now take the roll.
Chair Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Champion.
No.
Senator Draheim.
Aye.
Senator Goggin.
Aye.
Senator Housley.
Aye.
Senator Isaacson.
No.
Senator Little. Senator Little. Senator Miller.
Yes.
Senator Simonson.
No.
Senator Utke.
Aye.
With 6 ayes and 3 noes, the bill is passed and passed on to the Committee on Local Government. There being no further business before the committee, the meeting is adjourned.